shortly from the president's chief domestic policy advisor. But first, let's get a Republican point of view from Congressman Bob Goodlatte of Virginia. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for coming in.
Good to be with you, Wolf.
The administration says it really has no choice in dealing with these 60,000 kids, unaccompanied kids, who have come in so far across the border illegally because of that 2008 law that President Bush signed. You voted for it. Is the administration right that right now that their hands are tied, they have to follow the law?
Absolutely not. The fact of the matter is there could be a tweak to the law, but there are a lot of things that the administration could do right now to stop this problem, including working with the Mexican government, putting pressure on the Mexican government and these Central American countries to work with us to keep the children from even leaving their countries or making their way across Mexico. I know for a fact the Mexican government is interested in working with the United States in getting help to secure their southern border with Guatemala. Secondly, they could do a number of things administratively themselves. For example, they could stop abusing the process of prosecutorial discretion. They could investigate and crack down on the asylum fraud that's taking place here. And there are a number of other things they could do that they're simply not doing. Instead, they've asked the Congress for a blank check, an awful lot of money that comes to tens of thousands of dollars for each one of these children, and no plan, no accountability in terms of how that money is going to be spent, and no plan in terms of how they're going to stop this problem with it. So if they want some changes to the 2008 law, why didn't they include that in their supplemental appropriations request? In fact, my understanding is that just yesterday the president said he wasn't going to ask for that change in the law.
But the law as it stands right now, forget about any possible changes, the law as it stands right now is that once this child is in the United States unaccompanied, you can't just send that kid back to Mexico or to Guatemala. You have to do due process, put him before a judicial panel, get a lawyer, and go through what the law stipulates.
Wolf, the law does not say that. The law says you cannot detain the child more than 72 hours. But if the child is from Mexico, they are routinely...
Well, what if the child is from Guatemala or El Salvador?
Well, Guatemala actually takes some of the children back right now. And I think that if the president put pressure on these countries to have them work with us and to set up a plan to take the children back, they can do that. It's when the child asks for political asylum that they have the opportunity
because most of these kids, I understand, they cross the border and they don't try to hide. They want to go to a police officer. They want to go to a border police. They want to go to an official. They've got a phone number of a relative in the United States, and they say in Spanish they want to apply for asylum.
Well, first of all, they usually do not apply for asylum until they've been detained for a while. But yes, they are being trained by the drug smugglers and the human traffickers who work with these kids, who take thousands of dollars from their parents, who then willfully, they've left them in their home country, they've come to the United States illegally, and now they're spending thousands of dollars to send these children on this very dangerous journey where some of them are killed, some are maimed, some are diverted into sex trafficking, and expect that the United States government should simply turn them over to them illegally enter the United States. So if there is a tweak to the law that the president would like to have, he should step up and work with us on that. We're definitely willing to do that. But the president can do many things right now to change his approach and his policy with regard to enforcing the border that would stop this problem. It is not something that is all dependent upon that 2008 law.
You regret voting for that law in 2008?
That law was passed through a Democratic Congress at the very end of the session. Had I or my predecessor Lamar Smith been chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, I assure you it would have been much more carefully vetted than it was. But it was intended to deal with individual children who were pushed back across the border and maybe back into the hands of these traffickers. And certainly the underlying premise of it is a good one. But when it's being abused like this, where you have 50, 60,000 children this year, estimated to maybe grow to 150,000 next year, it needs to be changed. But in the meantime, there are, first of all, half the people coming here are children accompanying their parents, and the rules are very different with regard to them.
Right, but we're talking about the kids who come here unaccompanied. But we did some checking. Every Republican in the House voted for it, except 2 Republicans voted against it. You were not one of those 2 Republicans who voted against it. You voted for it. The Bush administration supported it for obvious good reasons of sex trafficking, to deal with that. But the law is the law, right?
The law is the law, but the law is not what is dictating this surge that's going on there. There is definitely a need to make a tweak to the law if the president steps up and says that's what he wants. But instead, last week, he said he wants the entire Senate comprehensive immigration reform bill passed. That would actually exacerbate this problem, not solve it, because you'd see an even larger of people.
So if they tweak the law, Congressman, if they tweak the law, would you support the $3.7 billion that the president is seeking?
Absolutely not. We don't need that amount of money. The Appropriations Committee is looking at this very carefully, and we need to have very targeted appropriations for very specific purposes to address things that are needed as a part of this. $3.7 billion is a slap in the face of the taxpayers of the United States to say, this problem, in my opinion, created by the President of the United States in terms of his lax enforcement of immigration laws. It's gotten back to these home countries now saying, well, give me money and I will use it to help them settle even further into this country. And they're providing attorneys, which the immigration law specifically prohibits taxpayer dollars being used for.
Mr. Chairman, good of you to join us. Thanks very much for your perspective. Bob Goodlatte of Virginia, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Wolf.